So about 2 years ago, we got devastating news. A family friend of ours had been diagnosed with breast cancer. It was shattering for everyone who knew her. She was such an inspirational woman whom everybody respected and loved. A few years before that, my mother had had that same cancer. She'd had surgery and then they'd been able to remove it completely. It was a miracle. We were all praying and hoping that the outcome of this lady's would be similar to that of my mother's. 7 weeks later, she was put into a coma, and 3 days later she died. It was so sudden, so devastating. I can remember the pain and shock that it brought to so many people. It was an entire community that was affected. Her church community, the school she'd volunteered so many hours into, her friends and their families. They all knew and loved her. And of course, there was her family. So why her? Looking back, I realized that well could have been my mum gone, my pain, my world shattered. It could have been me who had to rewrite my entire lifestyle, my entire idea of normal. Something I've finally realized is that my world isn't forever or invincible. Every day, people live as if they have all the time in the world, procrastinating over simple jobs, not appreciating family times, complaining about unimportant issues, and wasting precious time that could have been used for something of far greater value. Tragedy can and does happen, and we don't know when our world could be flipped upside down or our time be up. And that's the thing, not one of us knows how long we've got. And this has gotten me thinking, if life could be so short, what is the legacy I'm creating with the time that I have? How will I be remembered if I died tomorrow? So I decided to look at the legacies left by some people throughout history to help me understand what makes a legacy worth leaving. You may recognize this man. He had no formal education aside from the basics, but he did have a gift for art. From the age of 15 till he was 25, he spent his time improving and refining his skills in painting and sculpting, and he combined this with his fascination for science. He later produced many anatomical sketches which have changed the study of modern anatomy. In addition to that, he also designed some of the first portable bridges, a machine used to produce screws, odometers, diving suits, parachutes, usable scissors, and many more inventions that have changed modern technology today. He later went on to produce some of the most well-known paintings, such as The Last Supper and the Mona Lisa. Yes, this was Leonardo da Vinci. He patiently developed his talents and skills over many years and left an amazing legacy because he used the skills and talents he had to offer his world. You probably won't recognize this man. His name is Niels Bohlin. He was born in 1920 in Sweden and was a mechanical engineer. In 1958, he was hired by Volvo, where he developed the three-point safety belt. This is now used in every private vehicle and has since prevented the deaths and injuries in many major car crashes. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration approximates that these belts save the lives of 15,000 people every year. This is all thanks to the man who saw a need for better safety measures and used his skills and talents to come up with a solution. About 74 years ago, in the city of Montgomery, Alabama, there was an ordinary African-American woman who had an ordinary job as a seamstress and lived an ordinary life just like everyone around her. One day, as she was riding the bus home from work, she was sitting in the front row of the designated colored section. Soon, the bus filled up and there were no more seats available, so she was asked to give up her seat for a white person. However, she refused, saying, "I don't think I should have to stand up." You may have heard of her. Her name was Rosa Parks. After this act, she was arrested and later fined. But by this small act of defiance, she had started the African American civil rights movement. She had sparked the fire that spread throughout the African American populations, and in the end resulted in equality for both white and colored peoples. She started the process that brought the end of segregation, and that was the legacy she left. It is even written on her gravestone, Rosa Parks, mother of the modern-day civil rights movement. She brought what she had to offer her world, and brought a permanent change to the whole world as a result. But what was it that she had? She didn't do anything special. She didn't come up with some extraordinary scientific discovery. She didn't invent the latest car or plane, or give food to 12,000 hungry orphans. But what she did have was courage and a desire for change, not just for herself, but for all people suffering from racial discrimination. Of course, not all good legacies have to be world-changing. Here are a few examples of some legacies left by ordinary people for those around them. Maybe this is something you would want on yours. A man of grace and benevolence, committed, lovely mother, sister, friend, so dearly loved. Or maybe this is more your style. A legacy that is worth leaving requires stepping out of what is society's normal, of blending in, and bringing what you have to offer your world, sharing your ideas, your thoughts, your talents, your gifts, your humour, standing up for something you believe in, spreading compassion and not hate. Those three people I mentioned before all did just that. As I'm currently only 14, it's hard to say what I want to do with my life, or what legacy I'm going to leave behind me. But what I do know is that I want it to be one that enriched people's lives because it brought laughter, joy, fun. I want to leave the world a better place because I was the best me I could be. So from now on, I will ask myself these two questions. How am I impacting the world around me as a result of what I have to offer? And what legacy am I going to leave behind me? Thank you.